Welcome to Spirit in the Material World. I'm your host, Jana Zinzi. You can also call me Jazz. I am delighted and honored to have a very special guest here with us today. Her name is Angel V. Shannon. She's a Master of Science, certified registered nurse practitioner, and the founder and executive director of SIVA Health and the SIVA Institute. She is a force, okay? She's board certified, specializing in lifestyle medicine. And that helps you change your life, not just your symptoms, but really to live longer and to live better. She founded SIVA Health in 2013, specializing in prevention-focused integrative health for adults and seniors, which we need. So through her courses, coaching, community, and her bomb newsletters, and radical self-compassion practice, Angel teaches overworked professionals how to break free from burnout and to gain the clarity, courage, and confidence they need to design the life that they deserve. Isn't that a word? That is a testimony.
Thank you
Welcome
so
so
much.
Angel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction. Thank you. And I am honored to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm going to tell the folks listening that we met through a beautiful friend, Dr. Alicia Bonaparte, and really like bonded through Twitter before it got, fascisty.
Yep.
And I just really am always so interested in your perspective. Like I said, I'm bigging up your newsletter, but the way that you talk about health in this holistic and integrative way, I think is so important for Black women, women of color, gender expansive folks. And so I just think that there's something so relatable to how you talk about health and your story. I'm not going to read your full about us, but this woman is really fascinating, y'all. I would love for you to share a bit of your story of how you started your business, how you started SIVA Health. And although this is like, this is a travel podcast, right? Travel, arts, culture, spirituality. What you do, the wellness piece, I think is such a entry point to why travel is connected to this. So I'd love to just hear a bit about your journey, if you can share with folks how you got to this place.
Sure. And thank you so much for allowing me to have this platform because the timing could not be more important. Our stories are so layered, right? There's just a layer beyond and a layer beyond that and a layer beyond that. I'm going to try to just get to the root of it. I grew up with two sets of households, my mother's household in New York and my grandparents in rural Georgia. And I mean really rural Georgia. Every summer we got on the Greyhound bus or the Trailways bus from what is it? Not Penn Station. It's what's the station in New York?
Port Authority.
The Port Authority, and made that long ride down south where we spent our summers with my grandparents' 5-acre farm. My grandfather built the house that they lived in. He and his and my grandmother, and built the house that my great grandmother lived in. And every summer, we'd stay with them, and it was the most delightful experience for me. That was my first foray into traveling, right? This long 18-hour trek to their farm, their home. And we'd, do everything that they did. We'd, pick tomatoes, pick our, collards, all the good food, right? They truly helped me understand this concept of food as medicine, this concept of wellness and well-being, true wellness and well-being. It wasn't about having more, it was about being more. And this sense of expansiveness, I'd be out on the farm, I'd go fishing with my grandfather. He was the first person taught me how to bait a hook. And so that feeling of wellness and community and being in their small but large community of others who were growing their own food, saving seeds, fishing, living off the land, that cultural experience for me was foundational. I never thought then that I was going to do anything in health and wellness and well-being and nurse practitioner and all this kind of thing. I wanted to be a lawyer. That's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be a lawyer. I came up during the days where everybody was getting their law degree, going to work for IBM, and living in Connecticut somewhere, right? Or New Jersey or what have you. And through a series of personal events, a early marriage that wound up in a very painful divorce, a change in gears, the need to hurry up and finish college and get going with my career, I went into nursing. Had a very good friend who was an ICU nurse, and she worked at Metropolitan Hospital. Oh, I think it's Metropolitan Hospital in New York City. Yeah, in Brooklyn. And she was fascinated with intensive care unit nursing. She said, Angel, you should see. I mean, the heart attacks and ventilators and all this stuff. And it sounded really exciting. And she was in a 2-year program. She said, Angel, you can get through this. You can do this 2 years. You'll be in and out. Like, get started. And nurses were making really good income at the time and still do. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. And I was hooked. The science of the human body just fascinated me. But what also stayed in the back of my mind always was that this is not the way we're supposed to be living. I would have patients that would be in and out and in and out and in and out because of eating the wrong foods or not knowing that the blood pressure really shouldn't be 190 over 100. That's not a good thing. Like, health education was the missing link. And these were my people, my Black people, my people of color who were suffering for lack of just knowledge of how to care for themselves. And I knew then that I had to find a way to talk about wellness, natural, science-based wellness and health, and help people understand the science of their own human body. Get back to what I saw on that farm about food as medicine, growing your own food, the power of herbs and herbals, and how to marry those two things because they can coexist. Never saying that allopathic medicine is, not good stuff. We need to be able to diagnose cancers and all these other things. But what do we do when we have that diagnosis? How can we bring the best of Western medicine's diagnostic capabilities together with Eastern, African, Asian traditions and make it make sense? Southern traditions, right? And so that became sort of like my mission. Like, I know these two things can coexist, and I either am going to find it or I'm going to build it. And because I was never able to find it, I had to build it. And so that's kind of how Siva Health started. And having been in allopathic medicine for so many years, 20 years, ICU, ER, shock trauma, community nursing, insurance companies, some of which I will not name, and knowing how the system works, because it is a system, and knowing the design of the system and what the desired outcomes of the system are, having been on that inside for so long, I knew enough to know how to build a system within a system, a practice that could exist within the system, but also move those outcomes more toward the benefit of the patient, the benefit of the community. Because healthy people make healthier communities, and healthier communities make for a better world that we all would want to live in. So that became my mission, is really sort of marrying those two worlds. And that is what integrative health really is. It's not either or, it's and.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so one of the parts of your story that I thought was so relatable and really informs your practice is the idea of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And working with folks to prevent burnout and how burnout affected you and
Mm-hmm.
put you on this path.
Mm-hmm.
If you could share a bit about that, because I know myself, burnout and like physical illness from stress
Mm-hmm.
is what got me to move abroad for the first time.
Yeah.
And I still think about those promises that I made to myself of like what I will and will not do, and how, you negotiate that sometimes just in your, when you're healthy or things are, moving in a certain way, it's easy to get back to old patterns or just kind of like be in, especially in the United States, be in the hamster wheel of it. So I'd love if you share a bit about how burnout impacted you and put you on this path, and how that informs the work you do with your clients.
So I, as I said, was working in intensive care unit, ER and shock trauma. And money is a very powerful motivator, right? It's a hell of a drug. I always say that. When bills are getting paid, and when lights are on and nursing is the kind of thing where you can work 3 12-hour shifts and be off for 5 and then work another 3 12-hour shifts. But what people don't know is that the 12 hours are never 12 hours, especially when it comes wintertime in the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic. So I'll never forget my pivotal moment when I was working a 12-hour shift on the night of the worst blizzard in the Mid-Atlantic. And every time I share this, I can see myself right there all over again, and I can feel the emotion of it. I was working the weekend shift, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because I had young children and I needed to be home for them during the week to drop them off, pick them up, blah, blah, blah. So I worked what we called weekend option, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And of course, snowstorms always happen on the weekend, right? So when I'd left home that evening, the snow had started and started picking up and whatnot. And I knew by the time I clocked in that, because of the amount of snowfall, that it wasn't going to be a 12-hour shift. Probably going to be 16 because it was just coming down so much. And somewhere in the middle of the night, our directors had made the announcement that given the amount of snowfall, expect delays for the staff coming in to relieve us. We would likely wind up, staying over. They were going to be sending out these vans and things to pick up the other nurses and whatnot. And of course that happened. People were trying to get lifts to come in, not lifts, the lift, but get a lift from someone else, because this is way back when, before Lyft even, was a thing. And I'll never forget the director saying to myself and a group of nurses that we were not permitted to go home, ride or no ride, relief or no relief. They did not want us to leave because of the risk of not being able to get back. Bad and bad enough, we had already worked a 16-hour shift. But what they'd said is, regardless if you're due to come back or not, you're not to leave because we may need you, number one. If you do leave, you'll either be written up or terminated. If you stayed, you needed to hurry up and get upstairs because there were just a few select rooms that they'd had set aside for us to stay over in. There were a few select beds. And if you didn't get a bed, unfortunately, you'd have to sleep on the floor. This is what they're saying to professionals. And I remember thinking, this is not my life. This is not my life. Some of us had young children we needed to get home to, elderly parents that we had to look in on. And the threat of being terminated, losing your income because you're trying to get home to see about those who power had gone out. There was no heat at home for some of us, the children or whatever. And I just said to myself in that moment, I thought about all the things that I had sacrificed, all the swim meets I hadn't gone to, the PTA meetings. I was tired. I was really, really tired. And I realized how tired I was in that moment, all the 16-hour shifts, not even just for that blizzard, all the times that we were short-staffed, nothing we can do, not enough staff, nothing we can do. The number of times I had driven home from downtown Baltimore, getting on 395, and when you go around that curve, the sunlight in your eyes, and literally trying to keep my eyes open on the road to keep from running into someone. That's how tired I was. And it wasn't just me. There were other, And I knew right then and there, I can't keep doing this. Money or no money, holidays or no holiday. As I said, that type of schedule that we had, you could work 3 days and have 5 off. You could be vacationing every other week. But I knew in that moment, I can't keep doing this. And I felt the fatigue in my body. I had been denying it up till then. We go downstairs, we get a coffee, you make it through the night. You go down, you get a little snack out of the machine, you make it through. You just keep making it through and telling yourself, I should be grateful for this job. I should be grateful for this income. Who else on the planet can travel like I do with my 3 days off and blah, blah, blah. You just keep rationalizing it. And that's what I think you were referring to. Like you just keep rationalizing that you are okay. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe you need some self-care. Burnout is way past needing self-care. No amount of getting your nails done, getting your hair done, massage, that is not it. Burnout is way past that. Burnout is beyond physical. It's even a psychological thing. I even had a patient recently who took a whole month off and did absolutely nothing. And she said, I cannot believe that I spent the whole month like in bed. This is how tired I am. She said, Angel, people say, why don't you get a massage? Why don't you? She said, even that feels like too much. That's why when people are burning out, you don't ask them, come on and do this, let's do that. Because doing just one thing feels like too much. Just too much. Why don't you go to therapy? Even that feels like too much. That's how depleted the body is. Mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. You need a total body reset, head to toe. There's so much refresh and renewal that has to happen when a person reaches burnout. And I just want to add this. Burnout doesn't just affect the person. We're talking about loss of income. We're talking about lack of presence, not being able to show up in the world, to share your gifts and your talents. You are a human being. You are endowed with amazing talents and strengths that the world needs. Imagine being that point of light and having that light just extinguished. And that over and over and over throughout our communities. How do we get to where we are now in the world? Well, a lot of people are burned out and checked out.
Yes.
Checked out because they are burned out. They have nothing left to give. And that means a whole lot to me when it comes to human capacity. Mm-hmm. What is the point of living if you are not thriving, if you are not able to give and experience the fullness of your humanity? I think it's a crime.
That hits so much just in terms of what we're seeing in the ways of like conversation online or just people that we know. It's, folks are in like survival mode, I think, a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think about it in like a United States context, and I think about it, we're like this extremely privileged country, mm-hmm. right? And at the same time, folks are spent.
Yeah.
Folks are burnt out, mm-hmm. overstimulated,
mm-hmm.
tweaked out.
Yep.
I saw this clip. It was like a TikTok or something. And it was this person laying on the bed, and they're like, oh my God, it's too much. I have to like figure out what to eat, to do my laundry, to do my work, how to get on the bus, how to use my phone, to, like just all these kind of like very mundane things.
Right.
But they just kept naming them. And then the end of the video, they're just like, like, on the bed.
Right.
And it's so true because it's like, regular adulting, like
right.
myself.
Yeah. It's a thing. People are spent. They are spent.
And then I think about, again, like in that United States context, right, mm-hmm. where it's like deep capitalism, you just said money is a motivator. And it is, like bills are real, you know, rent, mortgage, whatever, phone bills, credit cards, all the things that people are doing. These are like survival things. It's not just like, oh, I'm going out and buying a Birkin or whatever. Like it's just regular life stuff. And so just thinking about that context of our pace of life versus external, like other countries, right?
Yes.
And so for me, I got burnt out. It was 2013. I was living in New York at the time and running my own, which I still have my consulting business, communications consulting. And I got physically ill from stress. Like I got this crazy eczema all over my face, on my arms, on my nipples, which was awful. And the wild thing about it is that I was doing burlesque at the time. And it was like we use pasties. You put them on your nipples.
Right.
And I was like, I can't put anything on them.
Not the tatas.
So acute, like of all the places. It wasn't like
all
it was just
the
my
places,
face, which was
right?
like, I have to be out in the world, right? So now I'm afraid to go talk to people because my face is cracking open. I can't perform because my nipples are busted open. My arm, like it was the wildest thing.
And can't perform at something you enjoy,
that I love.
that you love doing.
It was such a weird wake up call for me. And I ended up doing this like super cleanse where I was just like made this big pot of vegetable soup and I was just drinking that for like 5 days.
Yeah.
And did what is the thing that they call the colonic, I think I did.
A high colonic. Yeah.
And and it was interesting because it was starting to get cold, which I hate the cold, and my lease was running up. And they were going to increase my rent by like $500 or something obnoxious. And I was like, oh, hell no. Not to be in the sticks of Brooklyn.
No.
Like,
Not happening.
No. And so earlier that year I had been to Isla Mujeres and
Yes.
I was like, you know what? Maybe I could like go there for a month.
I could do this.
Kind of see, and it was really this wake up call. And it makes me sad to think about that. Like a lot of times we need these big, crises, like health crises, to really integrate, make changes in our lives. But also I'm very grateful for it. And there's something that you said that I'm taking from your website that was on this, kind of on this note. And I loved this so much. Healing is not a cure, but a transformation of view and perspective. It is a letting go of everything that is not you. All of the beliefs, all of the self-defeating narratives, to become more of who you already are and were equipped to become from the very beginning. Healing is everyday work. What I've learned is that rock bottom is not the end of the world. In fact, it is often the brightest beginning and the most fertile foundation for writing new stories and planting fresh seeds. Rock bottom is the one place that forces us to let go of who we thought we wanted to be in order to work through our many layers so that more of our true selves can be revealed. I've learned that there are no bad decisions in life. There are simply choices we've outgrown and lessons that reveal the person we no longer wish to be. There are no failures in life, just roads that come to an end so that new journeys can begin. Disappointment and sorrow are the price of being human. This is bars. The gifts, however, are intuition, courage, and the power of choice to reinvent ourselves, to shed old skin, carve a new path, and lean further into the voice that lies within. Listen.
Yeah.
I read that and I was so moved by that. It just like hit me in the chest in like the most beautiful way.
Thank you.
Because that is, I think having these health scares, and there's been others, you know, not as intense or not as like visceral, I would say, that, you know, have caused me to make changes in terms of, you know, lifestyle and travel has been a part of that. You know, sometimes it's a physical rock bottom. Sometimes it's a spiritual
Yes,
rock bottom.
very much so.
You know, it can be, you know, mental, which again to me, and emotional is connected to that spiritual sense. That has gotten me to make moves in terms of like physical location.
Yes.
You know, in addition to who I'm surrounded by. And, you know, to bring it back to the time when I moved to Isla Mujeres, I met another sister who also shared with me something similar, that she had like a health scare and, or, you know, something happened with her health. And, you know, that also was an impetus for her to make moves. And
Absolutely.
so, you know, we've been having this conversation a lot about moving abroad, right? And, you know, what it is to step away from this like system and cycle that we're in the United States, and to take ourselves outside of that context, right? And to see how other people are living. And so I'm curious, you know, moving is not always an option for people, right? Or moving can be, but it's something that takes time and planning and consideration depending on what your lifestyle is. But you integrate travel into your wellness offerings, and I'd love to hear more about how you see that connection, why you feel like travel is connected to, you know, perhaps healing that burnout or, you know, just general wellness.
Yes, wonderful questions. Thank you for sharing your personal story too. And I want to just tap into something that you said, or as a friend of mine says, uplift. I want to uplift something that you said about the United States specifically. One of the things people do very well in the United States is cultivate parasocial behaviors. And parasocial for me means this idea that we can become the things that we see. We talk about capitalism and, you know, paying bills and all these other things. But specifically here in the United States, we have something that I say, you know, we need to think about, is the degree to which we worship celebrity lifestyles. We almost worship it so much that we think we can become these people, right? If you just work hard, if you just create the right funnel, if you just create the right system, you know, you can make, you know, $1 million. You can make. So some of the burnout is absolutely from everyday working to pay bills. But some of the burnout, a lot of the burnout, is this hyperachievement, this reaching toward things that we see and lifestyles of the rich and famous. Remember that show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous? Housewives of such and such. You know, we have this almost like obsession in the United States. And that's to say it doesn't exist elsewhere, because the United States exports a lot of things, not the least of which is cultural, you know, things, beliefs and stuff. And what I see a lot is people doing a lot of things. There's a lot of doing. There's a lot of this belief that if I just do more, if I just try harder, if I just create a side hustle, you know, a side grind, right? This idea of not having enough, not knowing what is enough. We see that playing out now. Billionaires, people who have more money than they will ever spend in a lifetime. And having been a clinician for 31 years, I will say, right hand God, I have not met one person who on their final hour, in their final hour on their deathbed, has said, I wish I had made more money. I wish I had more money. I wish I had. Usually it is, I wish I had more time. I wish I could have gone to more of my girlfriend's burlesque shows, or I had traveled to see her when she performed at such and such, right? So what has to be unpacked here and really dealt with is this enoughism. Like, what is it that is missing in American life that keeps people just beyond. And I'm not talking about paying bills and really making an income. I'm talking about that large subset of burned out folks who are trying to achieve a status in life that, makes them think that that's making it, right? I'll made it when I have this car or this home or this what have you. Buying things that you can't afford, trying to flex, as we say, that just keeps you on this hamster wheel, right? And I think that when we're talking about travel, and to your point about Isla Mujeres, especially when you went to Isla Mujeres, way back before now. It was the thing, I've talked about this, stepping out of that and into a slower pace to calm down, like you had mentioned in the beginning, this overactive nervous system, this survival brain. That is what travel, immersive travel, can do for you. I'm not talking about the type of travel of finding the biggest, most swank, resort and, running out there with your wristband and your towel and claiming your space at the pool. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about immersive travel where you literally get to turn off that overactive, hyper-achieving survival, I gotta do mind, a slower pace. Calming the senses, going places where it's just you and nature, or it's just you and a couple of other folks. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really, this is what good immersive travel can do for you. And I love that is so central to the work that you do, off-beaten trails and paths and seeing and really getting into the culture. That is what I would hope would be the genesis for the discussion about moving someplace. So before we talk about moving and living and uprooting, you got to plant seeds, right? And those seeds can be planted through immersive travel. Going a week here, a week there, staying someplace that is not at the resort, maybe not even the Airbnb, depending on where the Airbnb is, but can really give you a sense of who you can become outside of this whole paradigm, this social construct that we have built here in the United States. And this could be said of any place. It could be, wherever people build these social structures, which is practically everywhere. But just doing that as a starting point, knowing that immersive travel is that seed planting stage. You look at a wildfire. Nature is the greatest teacher. It is the greatest teacher. When there's a wildfire that comes through, and anyone who's ever seen a wildfire or knows someone who lives someplace where there are wildfires, the brush clean. It just whips through. There's nothing. It seems like there is nothing there, but it is the most fertile ground for planting new seeds, for building something new. And though it may destroy all that was there, and there's sorrow about that and grief and loss, especially through, physical loss with burnout, as we use that as a parallel. What we have to learn is that this is the greatest opportunity for growth, for creating something new, for entering the world in a new way with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. When you travel, this, the food being different, the language being different. I think it's just the greatest tragedy right now is the knocking down of the discussion about diversity. Mm-hmm. Forget about diversity in the workplace, just diversity in life. Being someplace where you don't know the language and that being okay, and allowing that to stimulate, to spark curiosity, to learn and to grow. That's what travel does. It stretches your mind in ways that you will never experience sitting in your same place day after day after day. And what's sad is that we don't talk enough about immersive travel. People travel and they go places, but again, that survival, fear-based, Oh my God, they don't speak, I don't know. How come they don't speak English? How can you ask that when you're going to visit someone else's, you know?
Right, right. And I think to your point, the the FOMO part of like trying to do the most,
Yeah.
right? Of like, I gotta go take this picture and do this photo shoot here and, do all the things. And I know I have a tendency to want to do all the things, less so I can like show it, because the amount of footage that I have on this sad iPhone that is screaming at me, like,
Yeah.
that I have not posted or done anything with, there is a tendency for me to like experience and document and blah, 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 but, to your point of the, like, it's so interesting. I never thought about it like this obsession with celebrity and this like the obsession of showing off and off, before we started recording, we were having a conversation about, different platforms and, some of the ways that people talk about the things that they're doing in a way of like, that's very showy of like, look at me. And also like what you said about sales funnels is like, look at me, I did all these things and now buy my course.
Right.
It's like, and I equate it to, with burnout and with, content creation and all these other things of like, I've retired early.
Right.
Buy my course and I'll show you how. And so my best friend, we always laugh about it because it's like, if you really retired early, you wouldn't be selling me no classes. You wouldn't be like, if I retired early, if I retired today,
Let me tell
the
you.
last thing that I'm doing is
Let me
sitting
tell
here
you.
writing an email and putting something in a sales funnel. Like I'm not.
Let
I'm
me
out.
tell
I'm
you.
going for a walk.
Big time. Big
I'm
time.
flying somewhere. Like get out of my face.
Yeah, exactly. We're living in the you remember years ago, and you can get all of this for $19.99.
Yes.
Call in right now and we'll throw in an extra one.
Not just one, but
Which
two.
you'll get two.
Yes.
But only if you call within the next 10 minutes.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, the commercial comes on again tomorrow night and the night after that.
And 3 years later.
And 3 years. Stop it. You know what I mean? Just stop it. Stop it. Yeah. And it really is exhausting. It's exhausting for the people who are trying to do that. And it's also exhausting for those of us who are viewing it. And what's interesting, I'm seeing a lot of posts and discourse in public discourse about the number of people who are going back to 9-to-5s. Have you seen that? A lot of people who are like, you know what? I've had it. I have had it. It's a hustle. Whatever their business lines were, there are a lot of discourse now about going back to the 9-to-5. People want their lives back.
Yes.
They want their time back. And I tell you what, I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see it because it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. And even to your question earlier about the moving abroad, let me tell you, it's not for everyone. You know for yourself, Isla Mujeres now is not the Isla Mujeres it was then.
No.
It's not.
Certainly not. Most
It's
places that
yeah.
even when I lived in Costa Rica in the Caribbean coast, like that was 3 years ago, coming on 4, and I went back in August, and it's so different.
It's different.
It's different. I mean, every place changes. Even, I live in New Orleans. Folks talk about, I see posts all the time, I miss the old New Orleans.
Everyone says that. Yeah.
Just even the time that I first started visiting to where it is now is vastly, vastly different. Like there's always, nothing is static.
No.
Nothing
It's not.
is static. And also too, like, that's why I was so happy to have the conversation previously about like the realities about moving abroad and like it's not for everybody. And also like please go do it and try it,
Try
like,
it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not the moving abroad police, right? Like if you think that's what you want to do, but here's what I will add, from a healthcare perspective. Be aware that healthcare in other parts of the world is not the same. I mean, and that may sound like, duh, yeah, we know that. But you've got to see it play out in real time. here where I live here in Maryland, there's an urgent care center on every other block. Urgent care is a relatively new model, new in the sense of the last, 20 years or so. But it doesn't exist in many other countries. There's no such thing as a nurse practitioner in Mexico. That I know for sure. So that leaves one population of providers, doctors, to manage all of the care. Good thing about Mexico, you can go to the pharmacia and get, many of your prescription things, which is wonderful, without even seeing a provider. But you better know what you're diagnosing. You say, oh, okay, I need azithromycin for this cough that I have. You better be sure it's azithromycin, and you better be sure it's just a cough and not bronchitis or pneumonia. So it's the kind of thing that, from a healthcare perspective, what I always caution people about, especially those who are in midlife. And just for the record, if you are 40 or over, you're in midlife, because statistically, if the lifespan is 80 to 85, if you're at 40 is half of 80, right? If you're 45, that's half of 90. So welcome to the midlife world. Because when you say that to folks in their 40s, they're like, midlife? That's not me.
I'm clutching my pearls. Like, I know this is true, and I'm also like,
hey, unless you know something I don't know, I mean, I know I have a patient who's 102, but even still, 50 is midlife, right? So this is the age when the bills come due. This is where those weeks and weeks and months of not sleeping well are impacting the heart. The weeks and weeks and weeks of skipping meals and, crushing it all night long. And to my point, in my case, going all night, 16-hour shift and just having enough snacks to get myself. I said, no, there's no way I can keep going like this. There's just absolutely no way. And so I say to those who are in midlife, if you're serious about, immersive travel, number one, but more importantly, living elsewhere, moving abroad, wherever that place is, you want to really be digging deep into what the health systems are, what you can lock into here in the United States, that you are familiar with, that is portable enough to take with you wherever you're going. So let me give you an example. Concierge medicine, which many people frown upon, is a style of medicine that puts the control back in the hands of the provider and the patient. It's direct pay model, so there's no insurance involved. It's the provider setting their own fee structure and saying, you will have access to me, we will do these labs, we will do longer appointment times and this kind of thing. It's all self-pay. This was 30 years ago, concierge came out, but it was very, an elite thing. It was like very, very expensive, and it's only for a select group of people who could afford it. Fast forward 20, 25 years, people's incomes have gone up, and people have learned more about this concierge model that, man, you know what? I'm paying insurance every week out of my paycheck, and I get a 15-minute appointment, and then I got to chase, this doctor down just to get an answer. I don't mind paying a little extra so that I can have my questions answered. So now we have these concierge models that allow you to have your doctor or nurse practitioner or healthcare provider be a partner in your care. Because it is a self-pay model, it allows them to have a smaller panel of patients, so maybe 50 to 100 patients. But the beauty of it is it's portable. Telehealth, now they're not going to be able to listen to your heart and lungs wherever you are across the seas, but what they can be is a consultant to you, so that when you are being cared for here and there, it's, gosh, I just got my labs done and my cholesterol is 200 and da-da-da-da-da. What should I do? Now you have your US-based provider who knows what you should be testing, knows whatever extra labs you should be getting, knows that, not to say these don't abroad. This is not to disparage anyone, any other healthcare providers around the world. I'm talking about familiarity. So you've got this person who can be a partner in your care, who can collaborate with whomever your providers are, wherever you are, who knows your health history, who, if you have to fly back home, can help you expedite some care here back in your native country. These are the things that I'm encouraging folks who are truly serious about, because you said our hyperactive, overactive survival brain is just, I just want to get out of here. But those who want to take a step back and be thoughtful and create a strategy, this is some of the strategizing work that I'm doing with my patients from a wellness perspective, or clients from a wellness perspective. Those who have said, Angel, I am serious. I really need for my mental health to get going here, and have started planning, but they know they need to have a strategy. There's no way they're just going to pack up and go, So this is the unpacking that I'm doing in lifestyle design and in my coaching work is let's take a step back and let's create a plan. Let's create a strategy. Let's talk about all the things you need to do this, well, to measure twice, cut once. Because there's nothing like moving out of the country and having to bring your stuff back because you didn't think it through.
You just dropped gems. Like, I really want people to understand how what you said is so brilliant. And it is. There's a strategy to it. Mm-hmm. And what you said, I love how you broke that down. And I think that's such an incredible service because, that when you're over 40, your priorities are different.
Yes.
I look at a lot of different creators and such, and I'm like, they're like, oh, I lived here for a week, I lived there for a week, and I'm like, oh, I remember those.
Yes.
Days. That was so cute. That was so fun.
Yeah.
And I'm 44. I don't got the energy, the
patience.
Like stability is important to me,
yes.
and also the health piece is incredibly important to me.
Yes.
And especially if we're thinking about long-term moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're like you said, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to move and then, oh no, now I got to pack up and go.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I'm not packing up and going back to the States, but like, where do I go now?
Exactly.
That's stressful. And, I think a lot of us who are, over 40 and are thinking about like, well, we may not be thinking about moving tomorrow, but,
mm-hmm.
or next year, but
mm-hmm.
on a retirement level, when you're older,
mm-hmm.
you need to be by good health care. And so
yes.
that's something that has been incredibly, important to me. Like when I lived in Costa Rica, when I was in the Caribbean coast in particular, I had this wild thing happen to me. I got a concussion. It was like a freak accident. I fell at this waterfall. The concussion was the best case scenario. Like it could have been
oh my gosh.
properly worse. And that really put into perspective to me because like where that is, as most places in the world where you have Black folks, you're going to have
mm-hmm.
like the, lowest quality
mm-hmm.
care.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst hospital in the country
mm-hmm.
is the one that's the closest.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same in the United States,
right? Exactly.
And I think that's to the point of what you were saying is like, having that system of care in the United States is so important because anti-Blackness is everywhere.
Everywhere.
You can be an American with money,
mm-hmm.
but if you're a Black woman, chances are, people are bringing their biases,
mm-hmm.
or and there's been cases that I know of this, particularly in Costa Rica, where people have had issues.
Oh yes.
So it's like, for me, making those moves, I can't divorce, as a person that's getting older, I can't divorce that part of like, I need health care. I need a
yes.
doctor or like to know if I go to this hospital, they're not going to be like butchering me or letting me sit in
exactly.
pain. Or, they're just under-resourced, so they actually can't do things
right.
they need to do.
I mean, Jazz, take something as simple as walking down the street, drinking your water and minding your business, and not realizing that there's a step down. Twist your ankle, right? Let's just say you're living in any other country. Twist your ankle. Okay, some kind citizen gets you to the urgent care center. They strap it up or what have you. Tell you 6 weeks. 6 weeks comes and goes and it's not healed. Well, you need physical therapy. Is there a physical therapy model of care there? Is there such thing as physical therapy? Are you left to your own devices? Right? I mean, I know several people on my Instagram feed who had strokes this year, who were early 50s and have been posting and posting and posting about their stroke recovery. I mean, look at Jamie Foxx with his special about about his stroke. there is a massive amount of therapy that goes into post-stroke recovery. We're talking about sometimes learning to feed yourself again, hold a spoon, be able to pull up your clothes with both hands, to stand up without being dizzy. I mean, that could happen to anyone, you know. So my point is that understanding the healthcare system where you are going and where you know, the Lux life that you are going to be having, be sure that those services, and I'm talking about all the services, not just being able to see a doctor, but the recovery services, the home care services, the you know, just being aware of that. Is there an insurance to be had as an expat?
Right.
Not all places will allow you to be, you know, receiving, you know, their government services as an expat. There is no insurance some places. Some places it's still paying out of pocket.
Right.
The old-fashioned way that we used to do with my grandparents, you know, when I used to visit my grandparents, that still exists in many places. There are no subsidies and things like this. So I'm not trying to prop up the United States. I'm not saying that this is the be-all and the end-all. What I am saying is that you got to get real about what your expectations are. Be clear on why you're wanting to move and have these experiences, and then even consider dual living somewhere. You know, what's the harm in saying, you know, if you really can do that, hey, I lived there for a couple of months and then I'm back home at such and such. You know, there's so many different options. And that's the beauty of someone working with a professional like yourself, who is not just talking the talk, but has walked the walk, who can absolutely, this is not about buying a course. This is about you understanding and really having someone who can take that deep dive with you if you're serious about that and you want to do it without burning out somewhere else, because now you're just in another place. Isla Mujeres is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's still beautiful. But you can be burned out over there too, trying to make ends meet.
Trust and believe. Like, when I was in Costa Rica, it was so funny, like, you know, just realizing how much I was working and how much, you know, I couldn't take time off, right? Like, I just want to go to the beach. And, you know, the wild thing about that concussion is that whole time period was so wild. It was like, slow down.
Right.
Like, all these things were happening. Like, my cell phone on the way there completely died. It was a new phone. It was 3 days old.
Wow.
Completely died in the airport on my way. And I was like, well, I am not stopping in Atlanta to go to the Apple store. Like, I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, and then as soon as I get my new phone, you know, and working remotely, we're on it. We do so much on our phone.
We do so much.
So I was like, okay,
yes.
well, I have my computer, but then I was like out and about. I'm like, I can't take pictures. Like, I want to, whatever.
Yeah.
So my phone comes, it's replaced, and then I think it was like maybe 2 days later, my MacBook dies completely.
Oh my goodness.
Died. And I was like,
You were getting some serious signs.
So then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So then I go buy a Dell that I haven't used since like 1999.
Right.
No disrespect to Dell.
No disrespect to Dell.
But going from a Mac to that was very
Oh
stressful.
yes.
So I was like, I still have to work. And
You still have to work. Exactly.
Then maybe about a week after that is when I have the concussion. And then with that, it's so like you can't look at screens.
Exactly.
I could not work at all.
Exactly.
And I had to walk very slow. Like everything I had to do was very slow. And that was like not the way that I want to learn that lesson.
No.
Right? But it was such a like, oh, I have to be present. And, you know, it enforced this slowdown. And I think about that year. Like, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm going to go crush it when I go live outside. I'm going to just make all this money and save it and blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, I made out of the last 5 years, let's say the least money the year that I lived in Costa Rica. And that was like also a conscious choice of like,
Exactly. A conscious choice.
I
Yep.
need my time.
Yeah.
Like I just want to go stare at the ocean for two
Exactly.
hours.
Yep. I'll get a fresh juice and that'll be dinner for the night,
I'm fine.
It's okay. And
You know,
exactly. And that's when it's real wellness, when it's made from a place of intentional, conscious choice. Like I know this is a trade-off. Because that's what life really is anyhow. It's just
yes.
one trade-off after another. But I am willing to do this for this stretch of time, and as long as we're moving with that intention and that spirit and that sort of like, that foundation, like this is why I'm doing this, and not you're saying it to prove to anyone else, but because it only matters to you. But when you know that there is some intention behind that, I'm doing this, I know I'm going to make this trade off. I'll reevaluate in 90 days or 6 months or a year or whatever the case may be. But I think going with eyes and heart wide open and aware, prepared, fully informed to the degree that you can be informed, and just knowing that things change, and they change very, very fast.
yes.
They
And
change very fast.
exactly what you said about reevaluating. I'm back in the States. I'm in New Orleans, and that time it was kind of a reset of like, okay, well, how do I want to navigate, my life in the United States? Do I want to move back here? And I think, a lot of it was, when we talk about like stressors or things, with stability, right? And that the not having stable housing for me was like, I need to get out of here. Like, I can't move. I was moving every month. I was like, I'm tired.
Right.
I did not move here to move every
To
month.
move every month. No. Yeah.
So it was a really interesting time and very informative, and also always trying to think about how do I take those lessons and integrate those things that I learned about slowing down, and even things like, I cooked for myself more. I enjoyed cooking there
Oh, yes.
so much more.
Oh, yes.
I had time, I made time to cook for myself. I was more with the rhythms of, in a place like Costa Rica, you have the same amount of daylight pretty much the whole year. It's so close to the equator. So it was just like, in the United States, if I'm going to bed at 9 p.m., something's wrong.
Seriously.
I don't feel good. I'm jacked up. But there, I'll just be like, oh, it's dark.
It's not right.
And getting up at like 6:30,
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Again,
There's so
not
many
things that are
things. Yeah. And we could talk forever, but so many things about this life in the United States, which just this time clock thing. I teach a lot about circadian rhythms and understanding that, as it relates to metabolic health. And just that is such an insult to the body. It really is. That loss and gain of the hour and all of this, and the disruption that it does to the human body is it's just so sad to me. And we know the history of it. We were only doing that because back in the day, farming and all of that, and allowing more to, we don't need to keep doing this. And it's just the amount of illness that it causes, real illness and metabolic disruption. And again, especially here in midlife, when you need that sleep. A lot of my work right now is around metabolic health and building a better brain, just because your brain is central to all of this stuff that we're talking about, decision making and, work stuff and having energy and making, better choices and all. And just the amount of disruption from that external stressor alone. That's why just all of this work is so important, because it affects every aspect of your life. We're at a point now we're going to start talking about doing vision boards again. Well, vision boards are lovely, but you got to have a plan. You got to be able to make good decisions. You got to have the ability to execute rationally. Please don't talk to me about manifesting if you are not getting a good night's sleep, and encouraging people to sleep well. I am not going to buy your course about...
You better get spicy with us, Angel.
I'm not going to talk about this manifesting if you're not telling people that they need to rest.
That part. That part. I'm about to ask you this. Uh, what is your sign? Your astrological
I'm a
sign?
Scorpio.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, is there earth energy here? Because you're just like, you need a plan. And I love that. I'm like, yes. As an Aquarius, I'm like, yes, I do need a plan. I all the time. Yes, I do need a
Yeah,
plan.
you need to
Oh
think
man,
these things through, but
yeah.
yeah, but that health and wellness, and I'm not yeah, listen, I love vision boards and I teach vision boarding and all this, but please put a section on your vision board about health and wellness and
Yes,
well-being, because with that as your foundation, you can execute every single thing that you want in your life. And that is real talk. Like you can really execute and truly manifest the thing. We're joking, but manifest the things you want in your life. Build a better brain so you can design the life you deserve.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I want to close us out, but not before you tell me a little bit more and share with the listeners about this retreat you're doing to Greece.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Uh, and I
So,
know that food is going to be good,
oh
number one.
my goodness. Amen to that. Yes, for the past 2 years I've been doing retreats in Bacalar, Mexico. It was a 5-day journey to renew, refresh, and reinvent your life. Design the life you deserve. 2025, I have been listening to my people who have been saying, I am sick and tired of cooking. I don't like cooking. I feel burnt out with cooking and I'm just having energy crashes and all these other things. So this is a food and wine tour to Greece. It is a 9-day immersive experience to help people fall in love with food again, to build a better brain. When you are eating cleaner, eating healthier, and when you learn how to cook simple, delicious meals again. When you feel better, you do better. So I took it a step back to say, let's start talking about food. Let's go places where we can learn how to cook good food with simple ingredients, not talking about slaving over a hot stove for hours and hours, but fresh food. So we're going to go to Greece October 4th through the 12th. There is an optional add-on for a couple of extra days in Crete, but we're going to the Greek islands, Naxos and Paros. So it's going to be so much fun. Got a little notification there. So yeah, going to be so much fun. October 4th through the 12th. And if folks are interested in this, is ladies, gentlemen, folks, like just want to have some fun, go to my website at sivahealthgroup.com and click on that tab at the top that says Food and Wine Tours. It's going to be
Put a link to
amazing.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds heavenly. Yes, because cooking does feel like a slog a lot of the
Yeah.
time. Um, and
Yeah.
listen, I'm about to put in my order for some olive oil.
Yes, I will be bringing all the things. And it's an outgrowth of just something that I even needed for myself. Like I've got to eat fresh food. I've got to feel better about cooking. Got to meal prep better. And that's the benefit of this too, is that even before we leave, I'll be hosting like let's cook together classes to start talking about meal prepping and, having these things set up, a nice like healthy kitchen, how to make a healthy kitchen and make your meal prepping and meal cooking that much more pleasurable. Take the stress out of it, the burnout out of it. Yeah, to bring that fun back in, fuss-free fun back into your kitchen again.
I need to sign up for that for
Yes,
sure. For
yes.
sure. Angel, this was, beyond what I imagined. Just so enriching.
Thank you. I
And
agree.
I just appreciate your presence and your groundedness, and your perspective on and the work that you're doing as well. Again, I'm gonna tell everybody to sign up for her newsletter
Thank you.
because it's
Yes,
so
thank
good.
you. Please do. Thank you so much. Thank you
Yes.
for having me. Thank you. And thank you for being on this journey with me. Shout out to Dr. Alicia Bonaparte, because that connection resulted in us developing this beautiful friendship and walking this journey together. So I deeply appreciate you. And listeners, please come back here every new episode that this beautiful sister of mine drops, because there are some gems over here. some gems. And I'm going to encourage her to get all those images off that iPhone
That's
and
my
into her book.
2025. That is my 2025 plan, is to take a lot of these things, like this documentation that I've
Yes.
done, and make it a reality,
Yes.
because there are so many lessons that I've gotten from around the world, really spiritual lessons, incredible elders, and not elders, but just people from around the world, particularly artists and people who are, how do I say this? Like, when I say spiritual leaders, that conjures a thing.
I know.
But it's not that concrete. It's not like they're in a church or particularly, but particularly artists who are using ancestral and translating and keeping alive ancestral traditions.
Yes.
Right? Where there's so
Beautiful
many lessons,
description. Yes.
so many
Yes.
lessons, and that really made me think about what you were sharing about, those summers growing up on the farm, and like these ancestral techniques. This ancestral wisdom, herbal wisdom, how to
Yes.
work with the land, how to be in
Yes.
community with the land.
Yes.
And it's funny that what I'm noticing too, my mom's family is from rural North Carolina, and grew up on farms, and like my mom hated farming. She was like, I was a city girl from the jump, which I respect.
Yes.
But that, there was such this, obviously a migration north for opportunities, work
Right.
opportunities, and financial, elevation, etc. And how a lot of us in this generation and the folks who are younger than us are interested in returning back to.
I love it.
Me too.
Yeah, I am loving this return to roots and rootedness. I am loving it so much. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of that. And I just hope that in the midst of this new, cycle that we will be in here in the United States, that we see more of that, that we see, and I know we will. I know that we will. Yeah, and that's part of this Greece experience as well, too. Tapping into that. Herbs, what are the native herbs? How are they used in healing? How are they used in food? How is it used as food, as medicine? That's what I really love taking that deep dive into. Yeah.
It's so exciting. That's so rich. Please make sure you follow Angel. She's incredible.
Thank you.
And let us know if you have more questions about this idea of food as medicine, what your thoughts are about Greece. Y'all need to go.
Thank you. Thank you,
Even though I should
Jazz.
be resting as resistance, I'm like, I gotta work some more. So I can go to Greece.
Thank you
It's
so
truly
much.
a pleasure and a blessing.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you for tuning into Spirit in the Material World. I am Jana Zinzi, also known as Jazz. And make sure you take good care of yourself, love up on yourself and each other. Peace.